Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And today I have Ashley here with Banzai, and she represents the product Demio. And without further ado, we would love if you could do a quick introduction for what Demio does as a product, which we are currently using live here. So,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we have the cool meta experience of talking about Demio while we're on Demio. So Demio is an engaging webinar platform that has really killer analytics. That's the short version. There are two main things that people love about Demio compared to other webinar platforms, and one is engagement, and the other is analytics and insights, so that you can actually identify who is qualified in your session, or who might be ready to talk to sales, or things like that, things that marketers actually need. So yeah, I'm excited that we're able to have the conversation on Demio, and all of our friends in the audience, feel free to use the chat, ask questions. Like I said, this is meant to be engaging, so feel free to jump in and be part of the conversation.
yep. So what do you feel like a lot of platforms miss with online webinars today? It seems like you guys really went focused in the direction of providing all these engagement tools and a lot of data features as well too. Can you maybe elaborate on those?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an expectation at this point that webinar platforms have some level of engagement, because when COVID hit and everyone was doing webinars, that was the number one thing people were asking for, is how do I keep my audience engaged? And so every basic platform now has a chat function. Every platform now has a poll function. So these aren't necessarily mind-blowing features. However, being able to have the data and analytics on who's using those engagement tools, how focused they are in your session, and then letting marketers take that data and rise up insights on, okay, who was my most engaged attendee today? Who's been my most engaged attendee this year? Who has attended more than one of my sessions? These are the kind of insights that marketers need to help them actually make decisions about their marketing programming, and to help prove the value of their webinar programming. Time and time again, I hear, webinars just don't work for me. They don't work for my business. And I'll say, well, how are you defining success? And they'll say, the number of people that register. And I'm like, well, that's not a business metric that's going to help you in any way. That doesn't help you identify success. So marketers need more tangible, insights to help them understand if they're making progress or not.
Definitely, yeah. And I feel like a lot of people in content marketing just go out there and start producing a bunch of content, put it out there, and hopefully, people find it and somehow end up on their website and magically convert. I guess, what would you recommend for marketers to go about setting up a B2B content marketing strategy that actually works? I know data is going to be a big component of it.
Data is going to be a big component of it. And one of the things that I like about content marketing is that there are a million different channels, right, for you to test and play with. One of the things I hate about content marketing is that there are a million different channels for you to test and play with. It can be extremely overwhelming. A lot of people are using content marketing inside of their lead scoring, which I think is a really smart idea. What I think is not a smart idea is to not be updating your lead scoring as you're identifying trends and behavior within your buying cycle. So here's an example. You are testing out a specific channel, let's say it's email, and you start to identify the data behind your email engagement. Number of opens, number of clicks, number of conversions that happen after opens and clicks. All of this information is helping you identify a pattern around a specific piece of content or a specific nurture email that's really, leveling up your conversion opportunity. You need to reflect that in your qualification methodology. Make sure that that is weighted in a way that helps your business. So my point in this is that lead scoring is an incredible opportunity to bring your content marketing and your data together to make good decisions, but you have to continually refresh and continually, outside of your lead scoring, look at what is actually trending and working. How are people engaging with my different types of content across my different channels? Then that goes into your lead scoring instead of the other way around. I see people making random assumptions, 25 points if they land on this page, but no one ever goes to that page. So why are we giving any sort, there has to be a step-by-step kind of order of operations to this. And then I think content marketing can serve marketers really well.
Definitely. And so you're definitely professing an integrated approach, right? Don't just do a webinar, but you have to have a proper follow-up sequence. The ability to really identify which attendees were actually really engaged and which ones are much more likely to convert. Maybe one deserves a phone call, for instance, as opposed to one that might just go into an informational newsletter, if you will.
Exactly.
Do you have any other tips for kind of an integrated webinar strategy that might work for B2B content marketers? Where should they start?
My biggest tip is always to start with a business goal and a marketing goal. So instead of trying to first start with a topic, like what should I do a webinar about? First start with your business goal, because that will inform the topic. And it will help you identify if your webinar is relevant to your business objectives. And if it's not, you shouldn't be doing webinars, just like you shouldn't be doing any marketing, right? All of your marketing campaigns and efforts should be tied back to business objectives. You want to increase customer retention, reduce churn. You want to increase brand awareness. You want to steal market from your competitors, whatever it is. Webinars can serve at every place in the funnel in all of those business objectives, but only if you start there and then build your programming from that. So first comes goals and objectives, create actual KPIs to help you know, did my webinar serve these business objectives the way I wanted them to? Then create a topic, then identify who that topic is best for, find those people in your segmented database, LinkedIn advertising, Facebook advertising, whatever it is that you're doing. Invite them, get them, show them the value of attending, and then follow up with them. Identify who was most engaged, who participated the most, how can they inform the actual content you're presenting on your webinar. This is something I do all the time. I'll create a poll on the webinar that says, what do you want to talk about next? Do you want me to talk about this thing and we can have a discussion, or should we do this thing and we can have a discussion? That's a great and easy way to identify what does your audience care most about. They're right there in the room with you. So use it to your advantage. It's a really small step-by-step program: goals, topic, segmentation, follow-up, identification of qualification, that I think really is the basis of really smart B2B webinar programming that anyone can do, regardless of team size or budget.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure to make use of the content afterwards too, right? So chop it up. A lot of great social media sound bites, like we will after this. Not to say we're great at it. We have a long ways to go, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Your conversation should become little clips. Your slides should become little clips. Do a blog post about the webinar. Do an email campaign about the webinar. Make blog posts into webinars. Make email campaigns into webinars. It all serves the same kind of opportunity. But for some reason, when we talk about webinars, the marketing 101 sort of goes out the window for us. And I don't know if it's because we get so nervous kind of being in front of a camera, or we have these weird expectations of like what a webinar is supposed to be. But we have to just get back to basics. Like, who is the webinar for? Why is it meaningful for them? And how are you going to continue that relationship after the webinar is over? That's really it.
I agree. I think a lot of people treat it as kind of a one and done, right? They don't do enough promotion prior to the webinar. They don't engage with their audience a lot. By the way, speaking on that note, if anybody has any questions they want to answer during the webinar, feel free to use the chat feature and throw those in there. And then post webinar, of course, too, the follow up that needs to happen there. The taking of those sound bites and creating more content that you could use on social media all comes into effect.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And it can fuel a content calendar for months. You have a small team and you don't have tons and tons of time to be putting out tons and tons of different kinds of content. One piece of content can serve for many, many weeks across different kinds of channels. How will you follow up with us attendees? Rob, really good question. So I don't know yet how we're going to follow up with you because I don't know that much about you, Rob. So one question that I would ask in my webinars are, why are you here? What's interesting to you about this topic? Rob, you obviously care in some degree about content marketing and or data. Maybe you came because you're interested in understanding how they come together. So I might follow up with you and say, hey, Rob, thanks for coming today. Here's some other interesting resources around content marketing and data that you might find helpful. And then we might talk about those resources. You might ask me questions, and we might just develop a relationship about that. I may never send you an email nurture that tries to get you to buy this specific Demio platform, because that might not be what you're here for. That's not what this webinar is about. And that's why it's really important that we pay attention to who is on the session with us and what our session is about. Rob, I guarantee if I sent you a follow-up after this that said, would you like to speak with my sales team? You would be probably mad. And maybe just say that's not relevant for me. We have to pay attention to those specifics.
Yep, and let people opt into your newsletters as well if they want to learn more about your company. Maybe they're not in the buying cycle today. Maybe they might want to learn about what you do over time, and eventually later on down the line they're ready to convert.
Yeah, think about those call to actions. Be specific about those call to actions. What makes sense for them? One of the things that we talk about a lot is the emotional buying journey. So I like to use this because I don't like the idea of a traditional marketing funnel. Yep. So think about an emotional buying journey that people go through when they are looking to buy a product. So they start usually in a frustrated place. There is some pain point that they're trying to solve for. In the example of webinars, I can tell you what it's like for us specifically. People come to us frustrated for a number of reasons. One reason is because their competitors, my competitors' platform isn't serving what they need. And they come to us mad because they're already not getting what they want from a different platform. People also come to us frustrated because they're not doing webinars, or they are, but the results are not what they want. So they're coming to us mad because they're like, this channel doesn't work for me. Why should I believe you? Da, 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 da. Our job is to bring them from a state of frustration to a state of curiosity, optimism, maybe hope. And when I think about how I build my webinars or create my content, that is the small journey I'm trying to bring them to with one piece of content. I am not trying to bring them all the way from frustration to customer. That's too long of a journey to do in one piece of content. It's not appropriate. So we got to start small and bring them just to the place where they start to feel a little bit more interested, a little less frustrated. And it's a lot easier to create topics of content across all different channels if you think in that emotional framework. You can create really compelling subject lines that way, really compelling webinar topics, landing pages, copy, when you're aware of the fact that they're there for a specific reason that they're trying to solve, and your only job is to just bring them a little closer, not all the way closer, not all the way to the end.
And I think B2B is, in a lot of ways, adopting a lot of consumer trends. A lot of consumer marketers are really good at, kind of bringing in the personification of the brand, if you will. Yeah. And I think a lot more B2B brands are kind of moving in that direction too. Whereas, people like to know the people behind the brand, the people that they're doing business with. And so webinars kind of give you a great opportunity, or any sort of video marketing for that matter, really gives you an opportunity to, put the faces of the company out there in front of their audience, so they get to know who the people behind the company are and what they stand for.
People buy from people, right? We know that. It's not actually businesses to businesses. People like to buy from people. And that really does make a big difference. What is Elizabeth saying? Nurturing an upcoming webinar with a cold social media audience. Any ideas other than just an invitation to join the webinar plus info on topic, pain points? Okay, so you're nurturing an upcoming webinar with a cold social. So you're trying to get a cold social media audience to come to your webinar. Yes. Okay. So number one is the best idea, apart from basic webinar 101, which is make sure that because this cold audience has no concept of who you are or has any relationship with you, your topic has to be so top of funnel, if that's where they are, that they'll not be turned off by your sales pitch, right? If they are totally cold, it's going to take a while, a longer time to warm them up, which of course because Elizabeth, I bet you're an awesome marketer. Couple other things that I would recommend. So some people, some customers that we work with do a lot in terms of driving registrations and incentivizing registrations. So there's always gifting and different kinds of incentivizing, there's all that kind of stuff to get people to register. There's all that kind of stuff also to drive people to attend rather than simply register. Some of this can feel gimmicky and it can feel desperate. Candidly, you have to kind of pick your battles on where that lands. Other things that I like even more than like the freebies is exclusive content. So give them access to content that's otherwise gated or otherwise accessible only through, trial experiences or something like that with your product, and give it to them early. This is the other big thing that I always recommend is give the value away at the front. So maybe give them something free first before you ask them for a webinar registration. Whatever the webinar is about, give them 2 or 3 free pieces of topic content based on that webinar and then invite them. They're going to be much more likely to attend if the topic is really relevant for them. And based on how they engage with that free content you provided them, you might follow up in a more personalized way. They're no longer cold then. Hey, I sent you this lead magnet. I saw you really liked it. We're going to do a webinar about a similar topic. Do you want to come? Hopefully that's helpful, Elizabeth.
Absolutely. And I think, you also have to think about where in the funnel people are, to your point. There's certain types of webinars that work really well for sales presentations. So it's people that might be, deeper down the funnel and they want to learn specific features and details and pricing questions maybe about your product. And for that audience, it could be tailored as more of a sales pitch, whereas, presentations like this today are more thought leadership, right? So what we're trying to do today is produce a lot of great tips and tricks that marketers can use to have better content marketing strategy. So, what we're doing here is trying to keep the topic focus very high level. And we're definitely, with NachoNacho being the SaaS marketplace, we're definitely leveraging experts and cool new products that we like to introduce. So our form of thought leadership is being able to work with products like you guys, introduce them to people that might not know about them initially, and then also give people a lot of great tips on how they can market their business using webinars, for instance. But everybody needs to find their own niche, right? And so if you're going to do thought leadership focused content, to your point earlier, figure out who your ICP is, figure out what they really care about, and then start to try to, build great content around that. So every time you do a webinar, it always has to build back to the greater thought leadership topic that you're trying to build for your brand. And that all starts with creating value for people. And if you keep your focus on community, you can build that eventually.
Totally agree. And, one thing that I love that you said that, and it reminded me about one of the pain points that I find my customers have a lot. You mentioned, Andy, the importance of knowing what the pain points are of your audience so that you have topics you can create and you can solve those pain points. Customers again and again and again are coming to me saying, well, I don't really know what they are. How do I identify what the actual problem is? And I just ask them. You just have to ask them. And one of my favorite ways to ask people is actually through webinar registration. So I do these quarterly Ask Me Anythings all about webinars where they're very similar to this. They're very high level. We just talk about anything that anyone wants to talk about related to the world of webinars. But I ask people to submit their questions ahead of time so that 1, I can prep and actually answer them on the webinar. And 2, it gives me a sense of what's important to them, why they're coming. Elizabeth, this is also a really good driver for registration because people are likely to show up for an event where they know their question is going to be answered. And if you ask them what their question is and tell them, I'm going to answer this for you live, they're going to show up. Or they're going to watch the recording. So get buy-in from them before the session even starts. You'll get a higher attendance rate and you're gathering more and more data about your target audience so that you can then take that information and pass it to your sales team, pass it to your content marketing team. Here's a list of topics we need to focus in on and put it in your CRM. So now you have lists of topics assigned to different people in your CRM and oh, Rob and Elizabeth were really interested in content marketing and data. Elizabeth was talking about starting a webinar with, social media, cold list. These are things that can help build relationships and ultimately help you better connect with the people that you are targeting.
Definitely great tips. And what would you recommend to do with the content afterwards, right? We discussed, definitely getting more leverage out of it post webinar. Obviously, you can include it in your newsletter. You might even be able to host it on your website. To your point about having maybe the transcript there helps with SEO too. So you could actually transcribe the video. And if you put that content on your website, it'll actually help with your search engine rankings in the long term. What about channels like TikTok? A lot of people don't think of it as like a B2B channel, but it's mostly thought of as like a B2C channel. But
Yeah.
a lot of people are starting to promote clips like this on TikTok. Do you have any recommendations for TikTok and maybe some other channels that content marketers should be looking into to promote their content post webinar?
They definitely are playing with TikTok. And my recommendation is always test every channel. Everything is worth a test. And then get out if it doesn't serve you. One of the things I think marketers struggle with is this idea that all of these other people are on all of these different channels. It doesn't mean it's going to work for your business. It doesn't mean it's going to work for your audience. It doesn't mean it's going to work for your content. But there's no harm in trying it out. So TikTok, go play with it. Go viral. That would be amazing. Come back and tell us that it was because of us. The other thing I would always recommend is YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world, SEO enabled. There's no reason not to put these webinars on YouTube. And there are a couple different ways that you can solve this problem. You can put the entire webinar on YouTube, basically making it accessible for everybody. You could link to just an on-demand version. On-demand meaning you could continue to generate leads and it can just run kind of automatically in the background, but it's still gated. You could also take snippets of specific conversations. So for example, we could take a snippet of this conversation between Elizabeth and I. She asked a question and I was answering it. That snippet by itself could go in YouTube, just, how do I nurture an upcoming webinar with a cold social media audience? Boom, that's its own clip. Then we have another clip about Rob asking, what are you gonna do with us as attendees next? Boom, that's another clip. So this slicing and dicing does take some logistical work. However, like I said, one 30-minute webinar, you've now got 5 or 6 different pieces of content. So YouTube is always a yes. Yes, I always recommend website as well, either the transcript of the webinar or again, take those individual little pieces. Let's talk about Elizabeth's piece. So we've got Elizabeth's little video, put that at the top of your blog, put captions on it so that you can get SEO enabled, and then write a whole blog piece that is more robust on that same topic. So go through and talk through what are other ideas for Elizabeth's topic. Then take Rob's topic. It's a separate blog post. Make that more robust. So from one webinar, you've got, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 different blog posts even. You don't have to think about it all as one behemoth. You can kind of break it up. And that can serve you for years. I mean, literally years. You just need the resources to do it. It's not quick necessarily. I think we should be candid about that. You got to know your way around a video editing platform, or know someone who does, and you got to take some time to really, do that. But it can be huge for your content creation opportunities.
Yep, and it could always start small too, right? So maybe grab like one piece, like the best sound bite from that video possible, like a straight running clip of like a minute to a minute 30, and there could be a lot of great stuff in there that you could just post on YouTube right away, or TikTok, or one of these other channels. And don't think that LinkedIn, being a B2B audience, is strictly the only place to promote. So don't be afraid to try other channels too. To her point.
Totally agree, and always, I think video trumps most other media forms. People, like Andy said in the beginning, people like seeing people's faces. They will stop to watch a video more often than they will stop to read a graphic. So don't be afraid to draw them in. Video. Not a lot of people are putting videos in blog posts or even on LinkedIn. Not, it's a lot of text heavy. Break it up with some visuals, and it'll make a big difference.
Yep, that's a great point. Any other tips for making your content stand out? For instance, on YouTube, having the right title that really draws people in, maybe the right imagery is so important to show up in search and actually get noticed. Do you have any other tips there to make that content stand out post-production?
One thing I would say is really think about SEO as you're building out some of this stuff. Think about your alt text on those images. Think about the title. Think about the stuff in the description. When you're in YouTube, make sure that you're in the description putting lots of links to go back to your website or to lead magnets, or go back to the original recording of the webinar. Here's a little clip. Want more? Go back here. So make sure that there's always a call to action also that drives them somewhere else within your website, or helping to take them through the next step. So I would say call to actions and SEO is a really good one. If you're doing videos, don't forget about captions. Don't forget about accessibility. Yeah, those are good places to start.
Perfect. What's one thing that potential customers should know about Demio and why they should pick your platform over others? If you want to kind of reiterate those points again.
Yes. Okay. 2 big features. So one is engagement. We didn't use a ton of the engagement features today, but there are.
So getting used to all the features here. It's
I know
there's a lot of great features. That's a good thing.
There's so many things. Let's see if I can find like a fun little handout that I could give everybody.
Yeah, let's show what you can do here.
There are so many cool features on the platform in terms of polls and handouts. And I'm looking for something cool that I want to give everybody. Oh, there we go.
You guys get a lot of awards because Elizabeth deserves an award for the most engaged guest.
Elizabeth is killing it. Okay, so you all should have seen a handout just came by. It's a little PMG copy of tactics for driving participation in your webinar. Print it out, keep it handy. It's a cool little asset guide that'll help you drive some of that engagement. So yeah, engagement is a big one for Demio. There are all sorts of opportunities to drive participation so that your audience becomes a part of the content rather than observers of it. I think we did a great job here in the chat, reflecting that. You asked questions and we actually answered them. We actually talked with you instead of pretending like you weren't there and just continuing on with our own agenda. And then data. Data is the big one. So in the back end of Demio, it's going to show that Elizabeth asked a lot of great questions. And that is going to be important information for us to have if we want to follow up with Elizabeth. It will show who downloaded my handout. I can see that 60% of the people that are in this room downloaded that. It'll show me who on the back end, so I can connect with them about, hey, was that handout helpful? These are the kinds of things that Demio can do that I think make it really easy for marketers to run webinars that actually work. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. People that might have downloaded the manual might be at a different, different phase, and how you interact with them in the conversion funnel, if you will. And then people that might be asking a lot of questions, that might have sales focused questions, maybe asking about specific features for the platform. Might be further down the funnel, and you might want to set up a call with them, I guess, if you will.
Exactly. One other tip that I have for running webinars is in your registration form, ask them, do you want to hear from someone in sales? A very simple question on your registration form. You will be surprised that some people will say yes. Some people came to this webinar specifically because they're evaluating your product, even if your webinar is not about that product, and they might be ready to talk to sales, but your business didn't know it yet because this is the way that they're raising their hand, is by showing up to this webinar. Rob, you are? Rob, are you evaluating Demio, or are you evaluating, this is the coolest thing that's ever happened. I love when I say stuff out loud and it's validated in real time. Oh, yes! This is amazing. So know that.
Definitely a follow-up email is deserved.
Definitely follow-up emails. And on the back end, again, having that data of, okay, who said they wanted to talk to sales? Who said they wanted follow-up content? Ask the questions that you want answered. If people want to come to your content, they will answer those questions. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about having too many fields on your form or whatever it is. Just make it relevant, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, and permission-based marketing is very important too, right? So you don't want to just start spamming people and annoy them. All that work that you've done to kind of build a community around your content just goes out the door otherwise.
Yeah, y'all. Marketing 101, make sure that you got your people opting in. Demio also has GDPR compliance, so you can have that button on there to make sure that you're following all of your rules.
Great. Anything next for Demio? What else are you guys working on that you could actually, talk about live, I guess?
Oh, yeah, good question. There's a couple things that we've got going on. So Demio is launching a an updated user dashboard in the next couple of quarters. That is going to make it even easier for hosts to identify who was most engaged in your session. So it'll develop, right now, Demio has these awesome little reports, but in the future, it's going to be an actual dashboard. So imagine like your Salesforce dashboard or something where you can just see these metrics high level right when you come into your account. That's going to be really huge. Also, in case you've all been sleeping under a rock, Banzai, the company that serves Demio, is going public in a couple weeks. So
wow.
We are very excited about that transition and all of the good things that that means for Demio and all of our other products. So stay tuned, stay with us. We've got a lot of cool things happening, and Demio features are fast and hot. So if you are interested in talking about webinars, or if you're interested in talking about webinar platforms, don't be afraid to find me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me here. I'll put my email in the chat. And of course, you can find us on NachoNacho. So get into NachoNacho if you're not already there. And you can get a sweet deal on Demio through there. So definitely take advantage if you're thinking about it.
Definitely, yeah. Thanks for coming on today, and really appreciate everything. Yeah, you could definitely check them out on their website. Reach out to her directly. She just put her email in there, or you could check her out today in the B2B SaaS marketplace. NachoNacho is the best way to buy SaaS because we have the best products and we have great deals on them. So I won't go anywhere else if even if I wasn't promoting it.
Totally agree. You all were awesome. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the great questions. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.